Welcome back to blackdoctor.org. I am your host, Dr. Renee. And if you guys missed last week, we are talking about allergies all month because it's Allergy Appreciation Month. So first things first, I have to say, please, everyone, share. Whatever you're watching on, if you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, please share the broadcast because I'm sure you know somebody that has food allergies. But tonight is extra special because we have moms who have kids with food allergies. And so they're going to tell us all about their experiences. And then all of them have some amazing companies and brands that they work with and have. So I want them to talk about those as well so you can learn even more information. But please, if you have questions, or comments, please type them in. And I will do my best to read them because I don't have a co-host this week like I did last week, but I will do my best to read the comments and get those questions or answered if you have a question. But thank you so much, everyone. Please don't forget to share and don't forget to like. Don't forget to like blackdoctor.org. Hit the notification bell if you're watching us on YouTube. FAIR, thank you so much. They provided us with one of our guests. And then, of course, my platform, Ask Dr. Renee. So thank you so much, everyone. Oh, we got our first like. Thank you. Here we go. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening.
Hi.
So we're going to start with Joyce. Joyce, please tell everyone who you are and why you're here.
My name is Joyce Brewer. I'm the creator and host of MommyTalkShow.com. I like to tell people in my pre-mommy life, I was a TV reporter and anchor at local TV stations in Ohio, Missouri, Mississippi. And then I got pregnant, married, and engaged all in 3 months. Moved to Atlanta. Well, not in that order. Engaged, married, pregnant. All in 3 months, moved to Atlanta, had this amazing son who we found out has food allergies. So I know Dr. Renee has probably seen some of my social media posts about him and the things that we manage and life and menus and all those things. So I'm delighted to be here. I want to hear from some of the other moms because I feel like there's always something to learn. There's always something new. There's always some way that someone found to solve something. So I just want to hear from the other ladies. But Dr. Renee, thank you for inviting me to be here and to talk about, my experience.
Awesome. Now, Emily, your name is covered because of the logos, but that is Emily Brown, you guys. And Emily, please introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for having me, Dr. Renee. I'm Emily Brown. I, just like Dr. Joyce, I am a food allergy mom as well. I've got 2 daughters that both manage regular food allergies, and my youngest daughter also has a condition called eosinophilic esophagitis, better known as EOE. In addition to my role as food allergy mom, I work in the food allergy space professionally. I'm the founder and CEO of Food Equality Initiative, where we support patients with food allergies and celiac disease by providing them access to safe and healthy food. We're engaged in nutrition education and advocacy. So thank you.
Thank you. And Anita.
Thanks, Dr. Renee, and good evening, everyone. My name is Anita Roach, and I am the Vice President of Community Programs and Education at FAIR, Food Allergy Research and Education. I'm also a mom of 2 preschoolers, one of which has an egg allergy. And so just going through the navigation process of getting her into a preschool and managing her food allergy, it's a whole new world, even aside from my professional day-to-day work. So glad to have this conversation today.
Thank you so much, ladies. So I need to know the other allergies, but Anita, I have an egg allergy too. Mm-hmm. And actually in my book, if you guys have not picked up the book, Mommy, I Can't Breathe, in my book, I tell the story of Mommy's helper. We went grocery shopping. My mom, I think my sister's 2.5 years younger than me. So she was not even walking yet. And my mother was busy with her, of course. And so Renee was doing her own thing. And I just decided to crack some eggs. And when my mother was able to get back to Renee, of course, Renee's sitting there not breathing. So she had to scoop up one, scoop up the other, and to the ER we went. And by the grace of God, no, actually, that was before we lived by the ER. When we moved, when I was 5, 4 or 5, we actually lived less than a mile from the ER.
Mm.
So, and because I have asthma as well, which I'll talk about in another show, but my asthma, I would get sick usually October and April. It was very helpful because the ER wasn't that far. And so, they didn't have to call 911. You just shoot up the street. It wasn't a big deal. But yeah, so I understand the egg allergy. And and I talk about in my book actually how to help people to find schools, because I went to preschool too, because my parents were both working parents. And I'm allergic to the top 8+. So you can imagine my mother's journey to find a place that wasn't going to kill me. So, Joyce, what allergies does your
Absolutely.
son have?
So my son is allergic to nuts, shellfish, seafood, and egg. I think I covered everything. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, Renee, being younger and, having those allergies and doing some of those things. I have the mommy guilt to carry around because I actually gave my son something that had nuts in it. It was one of those like protein bars.
Uh-huh.
And like the protein bars come wrapped up and then the ingredients are kind of like under the flap, right?
The flap, yeah.
So, I'm a blogger like Renee. We get sent stuff, free stuff all the time. So I'm eating this bar and he asked me for a piece and I gave it to him. And literally like 10 seconds later, I lifted the flap up. It said nuts, everything nuts, every ingredient is nuts. And I was like, and probably within 30 seconds, the violent vomiting started. Sorry, this is a medical show. We're going to talk about vomit and anaphylaxis. So that started. So I carried around that guilt of giving him something and not reading the ingredients like I should have. But now he's 11 and a half and he advocates for himself. So it's a very different journey when you have younger kids. And like Renee said, you're trusting someone to care for your child. Now, even if you told him you're a doctor and you try to hand him some food, he's like, what's in that? Where did it come from? He wants to know all of those things. So it's a challenge, but we kind of have come through the rougher side of it. The thing that probably disappointed us a little bit this year is that we had gone so long without doing his allergy testing because I have medical professionals in my family and they said, don't test him every year, kind of let him grow a little bit, see if he's grown out of everything. Girl, he didn't grow out of anything. So it was a little disappointing. We were hoping that he would grow out of something and he could try some new foods, but he didn't. So we're still on this journey.
But I tell everyone, and I'm actually working on something for kids too, but I tell everyone, I was born this way. Like, I literally don't know what these things taste like. I'll run it fast. Citrus fruits, nuts, seafood, chocolate, eggs, wheat, rye, barley. I think that's it. So, I don't know. You don't know what you've never had, and I've never had, so it doesn't bother me. I'm fine.
And it's funny because he asks what those things taste like when he's like, so what does shrimp
I did when I was a child. I remember saying that, especially when I would see everyone eating chocolate and they made such a big deal about it. I did ask. My dad's from the island of Antigua, and so it's crazy that I'm allergic to seafood, but I'm allergic to seafood. And everyone eats it but me, and that's okay. And I'm like, it's not a big deal to me now. But I was going to say to you, Anita, my sister, though, even though she's younger than me, she often, because we would be together without our parents, she was my taster. And it was very random, but she would know. She would say, you can't eat this, Renee. Now, she couldn't probably tell you like what was in it because she was only, she's almost 3 years behind me. But she would be right too.
Yeah, I see the same thing with my daughters. Yeah, I mean, my daughter who doesn't have an allergy, she is the other daughter's number one advocate. And so telling everyone because she's younger, she has an egg allergy, asking if egg is in products, and she's just on it. And sometimes I worry that could cause her a little bit of anxiety, just always being hyper aware for her sister. But it sounds like it'll just strengthen their bond.
Yes. They'll be fine. Perfect. And I love to hear that the older one is advocating. I love to hear that your son advocates because I am in a whole lot of allergy groups and it worries me. That's why I wrote the book, because I was in those allergy groups and I heard strange things like, we're just not letting him know.
What?
Exactly. I go, that's dangerous. And then I heard, well, we just didn't tell the school.
What universe are these people living in?
I promise you, I've read these stories, and I was like, and I would email my mom or call my mom. I'm like, Mom, I read the craziest thing today. She's like, but why wouldn't you tell the school? What's the secret? Or the only people at the school knew were the teacher and the principal.
What
None
they
of
have,
his, none
so
of
do
her,
they have
his or
some
her
sort
friends.
of embarrassment around allergies or something?
I don't know. And this, like I said, this is why I wrote the book, because I wanted them to understand how important it is for your child to be able to speak up for themselves.
Yeah,
And even
I agree.
and I'll tell you, Anita, my sister and I, we competitively danced, and my mom and dad are working people, and they couldn't necessarily go to all of our competitions. I danced as a child, okay? So I started dancing competitively, I think in middle school or a little less. My parents sent me. And at that time, I had to have a breathing machine too. So on top of food allergies, I had asthma. My parents sent me. They knew I knew, and they knew my sister knew exactly what I couldn't eat, and they knew I would be okay. And they, they knew we'd be eating at hotels and restaurants, whatever. They gave us money. And of course, the people, the chaperones and stuff, they knew, my dance teacher knew, they knew, but they didn't have to be responsible for memorizing the whole thing, because they knew that I could take care of myself. And I will tell you, I never got sick on any of the trips that because I've traveled a lot with other people outside of my parents. I've never gotten sick.
It's amazing. I think we see it all the time. For many people, they're able to not let their allergies, their asthma hold them back. And so just being able to advocate for yourself and having those resources that you had, it sounds like it really allowed you to overcome some of the burdens related to the disease.
And that's that was the other thing about the book. I didn't want people to think their child can't have and can't do and can't. No, I've lived in several different countries outside of the US, obviously, and I'm still here. I lived on an island, for Pete's sake, and I'm allergic to seafood. And I ate out. I'm still alive,
Yeah.
But I also was reading in these groups that parents were raising their children in bubbles. So the whole house was free of the allergen because one person was allergic. And I was like, but that's not real life. And I'm sorry, but that's just not real life. My mom and dad didn't stop eating chocolate because I was born. They didn't stop eating seafood because I was born. And these things were still in our house. My mother, I'm allergic to the smell of seafood cooking as well. So my mother cooked it in a pan outside in the garage, or she had to cook it when I wasn't home and air out the house completely. But, she just had to do what she had to do. So it's just all those
that's
things.
a bit much. We still eat seafood. My husband and I mean, typically because our son can't eat it, if it's a date night, we're eating seafood. Like, we're going out, we are going whole hog. And then we eat it at home too. And he just has something else that we make separately. Now my son, he won't let me kiss him on the cheek or anything until I fully wash my face after I've had it. But he's seen it, he smelled it, he just doesn't taste it.
Right. And I do think it's important for our kids to that have food allergies to know what their allergens look like, especially prepared in different states.
Yes.
I remember when my oldest was, I think she was about 4 at the time, and we were visiting a church friend's apartment. And, they knew that we had food allergies. They were nice. They had cleaned up before, but the church friend had their father lived with them, basically. And so he was an elderly gentleman. And I guess he had been eating like shelled peanuts in the shell. So they knew we were coming. They had cleaned up everything. And then all of a sudden we got there and I spotted a shell on the floor. And I was just like, okay, don't touch it. But it was a good, important lesson to show my daughter, this is what a peanut looks like when it's in the shell. So at least she knew what it looked like and could identify it as from a young age. And I do think, as protective as parents, as we are, because we no parent wants any harm to ever happen to our child, but we do have to, give them the power and the space so that they can then be advocates for themselves. And I think it's also important to recognize that even when we read all the labels, that accidents can happen. I mean, we actually experienced an episode of anaphylaxis just this past Sunday from some bars, fruit bars that we eat all the time, from a brand, I'm not going to name the brand, from a brand that we eat from all the time. We did try a new flavor. And so the label had no signs of peanuts or tree nuts in any of the ingredients. Yet, she developed hives and then developed difficulty breathing and swelling in the throat. And we had to get to the ER. So to me, that was just a lesson that even when we are as careful as we've looked at all the labels, we've done all we can, it can still happen. But just to know that it's okay because we've been trained, we can recognize the signs of anaphylaxis, we were prepared. And, my oldest daughter is 9 now, almost 10. And I feel like, she didn't remember what anaphylaxis was like before. It hadn't happened in a really long time. And so the only good thing I feel like came out of this was that she now knows, like, okay, if I recognize the signs and I'm prepared and I always have my epinephrine, that I will be okay.
Right.
And I do think it's important to acknowledge that we can check all the boxes, we can be careful, and it can still happen to us.
Right. Yeah. But it's preparedness. I'm a Girl Scout lifetime member. And so be prepared. And that's the thing. As long as you're prepared and then you're good to go, and there's an episode of Nanny, of what is the name of the woman's show? Nanny Joe Frost show.
Yes. Yeah.
And who knew Joe Frost has allergies, food allergies?
I didn't know that.
I didn't either till my sister sends me this video. Maybe I'll put it on my website. But she went to a family that had a ton of food allergies. And the mother said, no, she told the mom, we're going to go to such and such restaurant tonight. And it wasn't their usual. They only go to one restaurant, I guess. So she's like, the mother starts crying. She's all anxious. And I was like, oh my gosh. So then they go to the restaurant. And the waitress says to the little girl, I think I heard you say something about allergies. The little girl just breaks down bawling. Now, mind you, this child was greater than 10, I think. I think she was like maybe 12 or 11 or something. And so my immediate feeling was, oh my God, your mother has been so anxious that she's put it on you. And so Nanny Joe went and told her that. She's like, you have to do something, but you can't you've got to kill your anxiety because you're passing it on to her. And so she asked for permission to take the young lady to dinner or lunch by herself, just her and the nanny. And she said, okay. And so the little girl, the same waitress comes and says, what are your allergies? And the young lady told her what the allergies were. And then she said, okay, well, did you find something on the menu that you have questions about or that you think, you can eat? The girl told her what she wanted to eat. And when the lady left the table, she was just cheesing ear to ear and she felt so empowered. And Nanny Joe was like, didn't that feel great? She said, that's all you have to do is talk to the people. Just talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she felt wonderful. And I was like, and that's my thing is that if you know what to do and you know what then you can ask questions. Now, I will tell you I'm the queen of not asking questions because guess what? I just won't eat. I'm okay. Like if I just don't feel like being that problem child today, then I will just not eat. And I'm okay with that. Whereas other people, but I'm fine. If I know that I don't feel like going through the motions, then I'm going to just not eat. And that's my punishment to myself for not feeling like asking the chef or whomever, right? But that's me. But you don't as long as you have your stuff together, you should be fine. And I mean, I am so glad that your daughter is okay. Mm-hmm. But, that's always tricky when you get new stuff. It's like.
Oh, I know. We've got a follow-up appointment for testing because she had.
Just in case. Yeah.
Yeah. Just in case it's something new. I mean, it could be an issue of cross-contamination, but you just don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Emily, something you brought up about that piece of shell on the floor and the fact that you were able to spot it out, it just reminds me sometimes of one of my colleagues likes to say the mental gymnastics, right? That sometimes you have to go through as a parent of a child with food allergy can be exhausting. So Joyce, it was really hard. It was really great to hear there's some light at the end of the tunnel when they begin to advocate for themselves and they get a little older because it is a lot. to manage for parents.
It is a lot, and especially when you start trusting other people to watch your children. So our son, I've been working from home basically his whole life, but he would go to a Mom's Day Out program. He eventually did go to public school for kindergarten through fourth grade, but even summer camps. Think about that. Those are people who your child may not have met ever before. Does not see them every day. They may drop in or be there one week and not another week. So it was very important for me when I'm reading, registration forms and all these things. I want to know, are you asking about allergies? And if they're not, then I have a problem. But most of the ones that I found, especially here in Atlanta, I've definitely found, when you're filling out those forms, they want to know. They want to know what dosage of EpiPen, because now we're on a larger dose EpiPen. Our son's over 80 pounds now, so he gets, a larger dose. So all of those things, making sure your EpiPens are up to date. So if I go someplace and I feel like they're not asking those questions, because quite honestly, there was a church we visited when he was probably not even a year old. And I used to go to churches by myself without my husband and my son, peep the childcare situation, and they never asked me anything health related. And you know what? We did not go back. So when I found a church that had great childcare, they asked you what your child could have. They would say, oh, so these are the snacks that we have. So what snacks is he able to have? And I mean, it was just like, it helps when you have that village around you, other people who are supporting you, who ask you the questions and look out for you. When our son, probably one of the last times he went on a play date, a mom asked me, so go over it with me one more time, what he can't have. Thank you.
Yes.
Even though he's more than capable of verbalizing that on his own, but she just asked, just so I know, she's like, I think it's this, this, and this, but tell me one more time.
You feel seen when that happens. That's happened to me. One of our first group birthday parties for the girls, a mom asked, what cake can we buy? What cupcakes can we buy? Obviously, egg is a big part of those baked goods. And I just felt seen, and it felt nice. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It takes a village with many diseases, but especially with food allergy, I think. It's a community effort.
Well, now, oftentimes you can't have snacks and all this stuff like birthdays in school. Right. Whereas when I was in school, of course, it was a big deal. But my mom, she would make me my own cupcake that was, egg free and all the things I couldn't have. And she would, this is yours. And then at the time, I couldn't have regular ice cream. So apparently there was goat's milk ice cream that came in single packages. And she would say, here's your cake and ice cream. So when I went to the friends' birthday parties, this is what I took. And so, like I said, now there's so many things on the shelves that replace things. Like I went to the Food Allergy Expo in Chicago on the last day. Like they were closing in like 2 hours. And it was just very interesting to me because there was all these foods that were allergy free. I was like, they had granola bars, but I could eat them because there was no nuts in them. I'm like, what? It was just oats and whatever, I'm like, but they don't sell these on the store. I was just blown away. So I come on Sun Butter, which I had never heard of at this point. This was a long time ago. This is when Sun Butter, you could only find it at Whole Foods and specialty stores. Mm-hmm. The man was like, he had crackers and everything. He goes, here. And I go, no, I am allergic to peanut butter. He goes, no, but it's not peanut butter. And I go, no, but that smells like and looks like peanut butter. I'm not. Now, mind you, I'm a grown woman.
Right. Like, you're not going to catch me out there looking crazy.
Right. I go, I'm not eating that. He's like, I promise you that it's sun butter. It's sunflower. I mean, I'm looking at the container and I swear this smells so much like peanut butter, which of course I've never tasted, but I know what it smells like. They eat PB&Js around me. He finally convinced me. So I take a little bit and I go, I'm not sick. I'm okay. Oh, and I go, it tastes good. He's like, I told you. And so I think they had packets you could take, So I took a bunch of packets and I said, I think I'm going to try and find this at the store. He told me Whole Foods. So I go and get one. And I put some, I think I put some on crackers or something. And I had my jelly. And I called my mom and said I had a PB&J. She was like, you did what? So then I told her, she's like, I've never heard of this. I said, I know, I hadn't either. So when they came to visit, she tried it because my mom likes peanut butter. She tried it and she goes, Renee, this is actually very close to peanut butter. Like this really is good. And then, Sun Butter now has come out with all the different varieties, just like, with the crunchy and the whole, all of those fancy, they got all that too going now. So I was like, wow. But yeah, Sun Butter was the funniest thing that I told that man. I was like, you're trying to kill me and I don't appreciate it. It's like, I promise. But
yeah,
it was,
I think the free from food market is like a $25 billion industry. I mean, it's really, really growing. And I think that's a testament not only to just how prevalent food allergies have become, but also I think to, I believe it was the FAIR report that you guys did with McKinsey that showed that it's not only those that have food allergy, but it's individuals that have food sensitivities, or they may live in a household with someone who has food allergies. So, it's very common for consumers to look for these products. So
there's so many now. There's the egg replacers. There's so many different things now that you can find, and you'll be able. And just like even when I was younger, my mom, there was one health food store that had these specialty things. So carob was there. You couldn't find carob at the grocery store,
right.
And so she would go there and get carob. There was some sort of mayonnaise that was egg free that she could buy at this grocery store. Some sort of salad dressing, like all these different things to help, to try and, I don't eat salad to this day. I was allergic to raw vegetables, and the only raw one I can eat today is cucumbers.
Wow.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And they tried, and it just didn't work out.
Well, I have so much respect for your mother, Dr. Renee. I haven't met her, but I know how challenging it can be to navigate this space today. And I feel like we have so many resources and information is just at our fingertips and our phone. Yep. I'm just, whenever I meet the parent of an adult child or an adult with food allergy that had it when they were a child, I'm like, bless you. They're the OG and they were doing it before the
right.
That's why
I have so much respect for your mother.
In these groups, I was like, you guys have the internet.
Right.
You can look up menus. My mother couldn't look up menus. And I ate at a lot of different restaurants. She couldn't, my mother didn't call ahead either. And, now you can go and look at the nutrition and all of the details for different companies and brands. You couldn't do that back then. So my mother was like, we just figured it out.
And now you can find community.
The disclaimer, my mother is a respiratory therapist. So if something did happen to her child, she could always help me out.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, are you EpiPen or Auvi-Q?
So we
whoever wants to go.
We have Auvi-Qs.
Okay, that's what I have.
Just because I feel, now, particularly now since I've gone through anaphylaxis recently, I do feel like, it's very it goes so fast. Like when you're in the moment, having that ability for it to talk to you, really, I feel is very, it just helps in the moment of the chaos of the moment, at least for me. And so that's why we use those.
Well, yeah. And we have the authorized generic version of EpiPen.
Okay.
And so we've only used it thankfully once. But I can see, Emily, your point about even someone who's experienced it before and knows exactly what to do, just that additional support, real time, I can see how that could be really helpful. So.
Right. And we have the Auvi-Q that we went from the Auvi-Q Junior to now the full size Auvi-Q dosage because our son is older and weighs more. And I've never had to administer it. But to Emily's point, I feel like if I had to, I would need somebody to talk me through the whole thing.
Right.
And I would hope that my husband would be here because I think he'd be a little bit more calm than I would be. But, you never know. But I have to also, when we've gone on a date night or something like that, I've had to, leave it with the sitter and say, this is what you do. It'll talk you through the whole thing. And it's great to have the tester. That's what I like, just so you can show someone. And now our son can say, this is how you can do it for yourself. If something happened and, you could, the person who we leave you with is too nervous to do it. Unfortunately, you might have to administer it to yourself, which is what adults who have, food allergies may have to do as well. Dr. Renee, can I ask a cultural question to the two moms? So I don't know if this was your experience, Anita and Emily, when you might have told other family members, that your child had allergies. I know for me, I got a few, that doesn't happen to us, or, Black people don't have allergies, or where did that come from? And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? So I know that those are questions I got. So Anita, if you could go first, and then Emily in this, tell me, did you hear that, and how did you handle it?
Oh, yes, Joyce. And our family dish is a Southern style baked macaroni and cheese, which the way we make it has egg in it. And so difficult. And so, having the conversation, because food is such the center of what we do in my family, what many of us do, just having a conversation and being able to show from videos from the FAIR website, foodallergy.org, about other people's experience with anaphylaxis, with telling their story. I feel like sharing those videos, those stories and testimonies has really helped with my family understanding. But I absolutely got a couple of side eyes.
Like we're making it up or something. Like, who makes this up?
Yeah, I definitely got pushback from some of my family members, and it was really, and actually to this day, we don't even stay with family when we go back home. We stay in a hotel, which, our people, we don't.
Right, we don't do that.
We don't do that. But we have done that because there were family members that didn't take it seriously. And really, early on, I was really felt, because my kids had so many allergies at the beginning. My oldest has outgrown several. And so we were managing like 5 of the top 8. And I just had family that just thought I was like totally over exaggerating and, making a mountain out of a molehill, and just didn't quite understand it. And so it has been hard. And, I think now they do understand it's very serious, and, but it was a real challenge, and it actually changed the way that we travel.
Yeah, well, my grandmother, she had already told my mom that she wasn't babysitting because she had 7 kids. So when we came along, the only times that we ever stayed with my grandparents is if we were like sick from a day of school, once we were in school. But my aunt actually took care of us up until we went to school, and this is our great aunt, and she took care of us, and she stocked her house with like all of my foods. I was her favorite. My aunt died, and I actually was my mom officiated the funeral. My mom's a priest now, and she officiated, and I was the only person that spoke at the funeral. But she had everything that I could eat and drink in her house.
Isn't that amazing? That's such a beautiful sentiment. That's such care.
She had 3 kids, 3 teenagers, and a husband. Yeah. But she had all of Renee's stuff in there. And my sister by default had to eat what I ate, and she drank what I drank. But so my aunt, she knew, and like I said, never got sick at her house because she knew, and she understood the assignment was like, okay, this is what we're doing. Okay. And she understood, this is what Renee can eat and this is what she can't eat. And that was that. There is a picture of the board that my mom has for the preschool that says what Renee can and can't eat. And we still have the board, which is why the picture made the book, because we still have it. But, that was another important thing. And at the time I had to take medicine at school too. So.
Yeah. That inclusion piece is so important, right? We're always facing inclusion issues. So then when you throw in food allergy on top of that, it's just another way we have to, as a community, keep people included. And having those options certainly does that. And not only having those options, but seeing family listen and understand and not just push it aside or say that's not real. It's so important for the parents and the kids.
Right. And Dr. Renee, I appreciate platforms like this, especially in our community, having this representation that we do have food allergy, because actually a lot of us have food allergies. Yes. It's very common in our community. just like the asthma and, really all of the allergic diseases. And so that's why I think it's so important to have these conversations so that we can reframe the face of allergy. For whatever reason, we understand that asthma impacts Black and brown communities, but for whatever reason, we think the allergic process stops there and food allergies is white. Like, I don't understand that context.
I think because the gluten-free folks have kind of taken over the picture of it, and I think a lot of times people assume gluten-free equals white and picky. Unfortunately, that's just the assumption that a lot of people make. But I've met so many Black and brown moms whose children have, the same issues that our children have. So I knew about sun butter probably maybe a year after our son was born, Dr. Renee. So like you're talking about, having the internet, having Facebook groups, having mom groups, having all of those things. Often when we would go to play dates, our son was not the only child who had food allergies. He just might have had a different allergy than someone else. So then we were sitting on the playground talking about, these kids' allergies and what they can have, and talking about what food pouches and what snacks were safe and different things like that. So I mean, the access that our generation of parents have now is just amazing. And all of these new products that are out and things that we can find, not even necessarily at specialty stores, that you can just have delivered to your front door.
Exactly.
If you're having a bad day or don't want to go out or have one sick kid and can't go out, or because of COVID, you can't go out, everything now can basically be delivered to your door.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Emily, I wanted you to talk about EOE because I have not recently, but, way after, asthma and all these things, like 10 years ago, all of a sudden I started hearing about it.
Yeah. So my daughter has EOE, and it is, what makes it different from a regular IgE mediated food allergy is that it's the white blood cells are congregating in the esophagus and the GI tract when she consumes a trigger food. And so what also makes it very complicated is like the reaction doesn't happen immediately. So by the time she gets sick and is like vomiting profusely, having really bad pain in her throat and her abdomen, it could be from something she ate 2 days ago. So it makes like trying to figure out what the triggers are really, really, really difficult. And my oldest daughter was diagnosed with food allergies at the age of 1. And then my second daughter had regular food allergies by the age of 1 as well. But she didn't get diagnosed with EOE until she was 4. And I felt like I had the food allergy mom thing figured out. And then we got diagnosed with EOE, and that it has been a challenge because that condition is, you're trying to figure out what the triggers are. And so it's like you keep changing the diet and, you finally find something that works. And then wait, all of a sudden her numbers spike again. And now you have to try something else. And it's been a journey. And everybody that has EOE has a different set of trigger foods. So there's no everybody has, the same foods, but there are common triggers. Like dairy is a known, very common trigger for EOE. Wheat is a very common trigger for EOE. And so everybody's experience is different. But for us, the journey to EOE was really difficult. I mean, she was failure to thrive at age 1, which, that is hard to deal with when your child is like not gaining weight, not thriving. And then you get a label like that. And so we did feeding therapy, and she was on acid reflux meds, and it got better. But then when we tried to wean off a few years ago, every time we tried to wean, it was profuse vomiting, choking on her food, just loss of she would just not eat. And she was constantly sick. I can't remember how many days of preschool we missed. And so I was determined to figure out what it was before we got to kindergarten, because I'm like, we're going to miss half the school year. And we're going to be in big trouble, because she was always sick at home, and it was just awful. But I'm glad we got our diagnosis. We know what it is. We don't know what all her trigger foods are. There is a theory that if you've got a bunch of regular or IgE mediated food allergy and you also have EOE, that you tend to have a lot of triggers. So not like one or two, like many. So we were on an elimination diet of top 8 plus beef plus turkey and chicken, and we were about to start taking away legumes. And I was so concerned because I'm like, we're gonna have to start supplementing with formula. And I live in a state where the formula is not covered, and so it's been a challenge. So right now we're trying a swallowed budesonide therapy, and that's working for now. But of course, now we have to check her cortisol levels every so often to make sure that the steroid is not messing up her cortisol levels. So, I mean, it's a complex issue. We're seeing in both the allergy clinic and the EOE clinic. So it's just, it's been a challenge. EOE is also considered a rare disease, although I think it's becoming more common now. But it has been a challenge.
Now, is this what made you start Food Equality Initiative?
Actually, we got our EOE diagnosis several years into my work with FEI. Oh. I know it was the original diagnosis of IgE food allergy that made me start Food Equality Initiative. But yeah, the EOE has been a real challenge on top of all of it. So we were like still getting our journey of diagnosis as I've been building the organization.
And please tell everyone about the organization.
Yeah, so I started Food Equality Initiative in 2014, really from my family's personal experience with food allergies and food insecurity. And so I always tell people it was the perfect storm. As many mothers, when they get a diagnosis of food allergy in their home, they shift their life and their world so that they can care for their child. For me, I taught preschool before I had my kids. I stayed home. We got the diagnosis right at age 1, and I was going to go back to work and bring my daughter with me, but she actually was not. They were not going to allow her to enroll because she had too many allergies. And so I'm like, well, if you can't take my daughter, I can't be there either. And so we just kind of had this perfect storm of like this loss of income that we were expecting. Our food grocery bill went up, and we just didn't have the type of support that we needed. And so my husband, who is a social worker, was like, just, you need to enroll in the WIC program. So I enrolled in WIC when I found out I was expecting my second. And, for all the good work that the WIC program does, and it does do a lot of good work, we weren't able to find the foods that we needed on the program. And then, I called my local food bank, and they were opening giant bags of flour everywhere. And so they were like, you can't eat anything here either, but try a local food pantry. Well, I went to the food pantry and, stood in line for hours, and there were only 2 potatoes and a jar of salsa, the only safe foods. So that was really kind of the defining moment where I was like, we can't be the only family dealing with this. Like, what's really driving our food insecurity is the high cost of these allergy-friendly foods, which, by the way, cost 2 to 4 times that of those that contain common allergens. And so I started the organization originally working on policy work to amend the WIC food packages, which we did have a slight win, but really recognizing that we can't just wait for the federal government to act, that we have to really be active and be the change that we want to see. So our organization created a supplemental food assistance program for patients with food allergy and celiac disease. It has evolved over time, but every person that we serve has a prescription from their doctor. It's considered as part of the treatment plan. And, we started in a pantry model where we negotiated for space within pantries, and we stocked those shelves and provided training and support while we managed the referrals from clinics and working directly with brands. But that has evolved, and we now actually run a direct-to-door service. So it's There's a dedicated online platform where they're able to order all the foods that they want and need within their prescribed diet or their cultural diet, and then it's delivered direct to door. And so we also provide nutrition education. We have a dedicated client focused magazine that we produce every month called Free From. Every article is written at the 5th grade level, has different voices. We also have just added a Spanish language article every month, really working up to have a secondary Spanish language publication by next year. And so really working to, bring all of these thoughts and ideas to our community and to individuals and families who may not be aware that there's support and community available. And then finally, really working on advocacy, because we do know long term, policy work is really what makes this work sustainable. And so really looking at amending those federal nutrition programs, as well as looking at, the whole food is medicine movement and the reimbursements of food. And so, a lot of that work has been focused on diet related illness, but we're working to really build the pipeline for what we call diet treated illness that's not caused by poor diet, but illness that is really only managed by the foods that you eat. And as such should be covered, because right now, the only standard of care for food allergy is food avoidance. Mm-hmm. And how you do that is by having access to the right foods at the right time. So therefore, we see those disparities, those health disparities, fall right along racial and economic lines. So those who can't afford the food, they just simply are sick.
Mm-hmm. So Anita, please tell us more about FAIR.
Absolutely. And so FAIR, Food Allergy Research and Education, we are a nonprofit organization dedicated to improving the lives of the 32 million Americans. And as Emily pointed out, 85 million Americans facing either food allergy or food intolerances to the top 9 allergens. And so the work that Emily is doing is so critically important because, and I see it every day, in the work that I do at FAIR, we're really focusing on bringing more resources, whether it's educational or research-based or community-based resources to different communities around the country to really make sure that all communities, including underserved communities, have access to these resources. And the data that we're seeing is really stark. As Emily mentioned, food insecurity in many of these communities are only making it more likely that people have anaphylaxis because they can't afford these safe foods, or that they are unable to afford the specialty care needed. As Emily mentioned, allergists are really the specialty care that treat food allergy. But then if you have EOE, you might need to see another specialist. If you have asthma, you might need to see another specialist. And sometimes it could just be daunting and overwhelming. And so what we're doing in communities is really looking to build easy to understand, easy to access resources to point to, here's where you go for this, and here's where you go for that, and here's when you need to refill your prescription. Just building resources to make it life with food allergy more less burdensome. And so this community work, we started in Newark, New Jersey, and we're expanding to DC this winter and look to expand to communities around the country over the next few years to really make sure that all communities have access to these resources. At FAIR, we also support food allergy research. We're the largest private funder of food allergy research. And that includes research around managing food allergy and treating food allergy, but also preventing food allergy. And there's a lot of work being done in that area. And it looks like there might be opportunities with things like introducing allergens early in diet to reduce the risk of certain allergies. So lots of work being done at FAIR, and really happy to be a part of this conversation again. So thank you.
Thank you. You guys are amazing work. And Emily, I don't do politics, so I just kudos to anybody who says anything about doing policy changes. But I know that they're absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
I know they're absolutely necessary. And, I tell everybody when I was growing up, I was the only person probably in the whole school that had food allergies. Whereas now, at least, the children aren't by themselves. and the parents are by themselves. There is more people, and it's more of a conversation that is ongoing. It's not something no one knows about. And if your store doesn't carry certain things, you are the anomaly, because most stores carry these other items. Like, for instance, cream of rice, which most people are like, what's that? Cream of rice is gluten-free, and it's made by the same company that makes cream of wheat. As a matter of fact, the same black man on the cover of the cream of wheat is on cream of rice. I grew up on cream of rice for obvious reasons and still eat it to this day. Love cream of rice. But I'll never forget it, a few years ago on Valentine's Day, my grocery store finally stocked it. I was so happy. I said, Daddy, I am so excited. There's cream of rice at the grocery store. He's like, Renee. I was like, Dad, I'm easy to please. This is all I wanted, was cream of rice to be at the grocery store that I go to every other day, you know? So, and it should be sitting right next to the cream of wheat, because when I was younger, the way that they kind of figured out something might be wrong was oatmeal. So I couldn't have oatmeal for the longest. Now I can, but I couldn't have oatmeal growing up. And so, as far as hot cereal, I was out of luck. Think about it. What is there? So cream of rice I don't even know how my mother found cream of rice. I'll have to ask her, but cream of rice was my go-to. And thank you, Jesus, they still make cream of rice. The company's called B&G Foods. Okay. And it's an orange box, but if you go to your grocery store, go look and see if you see it. It should be next to the cream of wheat. And like I said, exact same man on the cover of cream of wheat is on cream of rice. And so, just little things like that. Like, everyone has cream of rice. Why don't you have cream of rice? This is the store that is closest to my house. I shouldn't have to drive across town to go, And so just little things like that, I think that we can really make a difference if you say something. And like I said, I'm not into policy. That is above me. But I am all about going to the grocery store manager, whatever, and saying, hi, I'm looking for this. It's not on the shelves. Your competitor over there has it, but this is the store I choose to come to. Could you please try to start stocking this? And literally, that's what it was. It was a conversation. It took maybe a couple months after, and this is the grocery store just came to my neighborhood. And so it took a few months after they got there, but he had it and it came, and I was so excited. I was like, they have my cream of rice. But yeah, so now, and just like even with these non-dairy milks, because now, even though I drink skim milk if I'm going to drink a dairy milk, I don't drink dairy milks anymore. I'm all about oat milks. The specific brand that I like, I'd like you to carry it. I don't want to have to go to, I'd like you to have it. And there's so many, there's the flaxseed milk. There's so many different varieties now. And there's ways to cater to us. And, you think you're catering to a small population, but then you look on the shelf and it's sold out because it's not just that one person that asked you for it.
Or sometimes they'll only have 2 or 3, they'll have such a small number, and you come, 2 other people come, and then it's gone.
Yeah. So I'm very, it's so important that just have these conversations and talk to the, and at restaurants even, restaurants that have strange policies. Like, there was a restaurant that fried their fish and their chicken in the exact same fryer, same oil. So needless to say, that story is in the book. I got sick on opening night of my play. I was in Oliver, and my mom, I told her, because with me, my throat will start itching. And even when I'm not about to get really, really sick, if it was something, my throat could itch, and then I could take some Benadryl and be okay. But this was progressing. I ended up having to carry my breathing machine. And when I would leave stage, I'd be backstage taking a treatment. Then I could go back for my next scene. It was horrible. And this was a restaurant. And it's like, who does this? Why would my mother goes, why should her chicken taste like fish? Vice versa. Why should their fish taste like chicken? I mean, why would you mix it put in the same thing? So little things like that. Sometimes you do have to have a conversation with, restaurants, and let them know that that's just silly, and you really could get sued. So you really shouldn't do something, because it didn't say on the menu that your chicken is fried with the fish. So it's going to taste like fish.
And at FAIR, to that point, Dr. Renee, we have a number of resources and training programs that restaurants and other food service professionals can take to be aware about cross contact and food allergies and how to keep their patrons safe. As Emily mentioned, food allergy consumers have a high purchasing power.
Right.
And so our voices matter when it comes to letting manufacturers know what we're looking for, or supermarkets with your cream of rice, or restaurants. And so I think it goes back to us talking about advocating for yourself, because the dollars we spend matter.
So Joyce, lastly with you, please tell them about Mommy Talk Show, your amazing brand that you've built.
Thank you, Dr. Renee. So, like I said, I started Mommy Talk Show when our son was about 10 months old. So it started out just reviewing products, talking about some of the things that came up in some of my mom groups. Like Dr. Renee said, Facebook groups and mom groups are like gold mines for hot topics. People talk about things you would never think about. And then like a lot of bloggers and influencers, there's opportunities to partner with different brands. There's opportunities to do sponsorships, on my blog or, in-person events and things like that. So I just had the opportunity last month actually to do a media tour for Disney. So I got to talk to 30 radio and TV stations about World Princess Week, which was fun. And I was surprised they picked me even as a boy mom. I don't have a daughter who's into princesses, but it was really interesting because, they wanted me to lean into that. For any of us, your story is the most important thing. Like you being you surpasses anything. So me talking about, my son, talking about World Princess Week, talking about all of these sorts of things are really what resonates with people. And Dr. Renee talked about the blog post that I had up most recently about Connections Academy, which is an online public charter school for K through 12 kids. We had started Connections Academy last year. I had no intentions of partnering with them or whatever. Like it's something like in the back of my mind. Oh, that would be great. Well, lo and behold, they reach out to me. They had no idea that my son was attending Connections Academy. And now we're doing some partnerships with them. So not just that blog post, but also some videos. And then we also did a video that I think I've just posted on Instagram and Twitter that Emily and Anita could probably resonate with. It's don't say this, say that to families with food allergies, because people say some really, I don't like the word stupid, so I'll say less than smart, insensitive things about food allergies. And I'm like, did you think about that at all between here and your mouth? Or did it just here mouth, like it just direct point? So those are some of the things that we get to do and talk about, and visit places here in Atlanta that we like to visit as well. So that's what I get to do with Mommy Talk Show, and get to partner with brands and things like that. And like Dr. Renee, you're juggling like 4 or 5 things, and consulting, freelancing, all of those things. But the great thing is I get to be home. Our son has been home since the middle of his 4th grade year. He's in 6th grade now. And to his point, he's like, Mom, I'm so much healthier. I haven't had any colds. I haven't had any asthma attacks. I haven't had anything. And I'm like, it's wonderful that you're healthier. We don't want you to be, to not be around people. But unfortunately, right now, it's the healthiest choice for us.
Right. Well, ladies, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Everyone, please follow these ladies: Anita Roach, Emily Brown, Joyce Brewer, at Mommy Talk Show, at Food Equality Initiative, right? You're muted.
At Food Equality.
At Food Equality. And then Anita, you're at Anita Roach, right?
Yep. And then Fair is at Food Allergy. Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go follow everyone as soon as we get off of this.
And I put the links, you guys, for everyone. I put the links in the comments for foodequalityinitiative.org and for foodallergy.org. So you can visit those websites and get more information. Please don't forget to go pick up Mommy I Can't Breathe, which is at mommyican'tbreathe.com. And you can follow me everywhere at Ask Dr. Renee. And of course, I'll be back next Thursday and we'll talk about something else. So good night, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Renee.
Have a good night. Thank you.